So hello everybody. In this video I want to talk about this topic of if you're afraid of relapse, how you can calm your nervous system and reclaim your power. If you're joining me live, do just say hello in the chat, let me know where you are in the world. If you're watching the replay, put hashtag replay. So a comment I hear a lot, I see this a lot in Facebook groups, is people saying, I'm really scared of going back to how I was when I was at my worst. Okay, so if you can resonate with that, let me know. Certainly there is a time when, that's what was going through my head, and I was generating a lot of fear and anxiety. Okay, so if you are here, it might be because you have that same fear, and I want you to know it's okay, you're not alone. Other people have the same thing going through their head. Hi Dorothy in Lancaster, thanks for letting me know where you are. If you just joined, feel free to say hello. Consider and let me know in the chat, how does that feel for you? What is it that you experience in your body, okay, when you're feeling that anxiety? Okay, so we're going to explore how that fear and why that fear arises, how it affects your body, and how you can support yourself in a different way. So first thing to consider, why fear of relapse is so common, is that your body remembers. When we have strong experiences, we have this kind of light bulb memory or flash bulb memory where we remember that thing quite strongly. So there was, people have heard the expression, everyone knows where they were when John Kennedy was shot. I don't remember it because I wasn't born. But similarly, everyone remembers when the Twin Towers, had planes crashing into it, if you were alive at that point. Okay, so we do remember these strong experiences, and the brain does that because it's a way of staying safe. If our cavewoman ancestors were in a certain spot and they encountered a saber-toothed tiger, they're going to remember that. Okay, so chronic illness often comes with upsetting experiences. Might be trauma, might be upset, not being understood by the medical profession, might be emotional upset, might be physical. And the mind wants certainty and control because that's going to keep us safe. So it tries to prepare for the worst. And whilst it's useful to think about what's the worst case scenario here, it's then important to focus on, well, what can we do to prepare? Okay, so consider that fear is a messenger. Your emotional brain sends signals via your body, via emotions, sensations and symptoms, to let you know if you don't feel safe, if you don't feel fulfilled. So fear is a messenger, but it doesn't have to be your, the guiding influence. It can be a signal that we need to take action. So how fear affects the nervous system and healing? Well, fear activates the fight, flight, freeze response. And so when we're in that state, the body stays in survival mode. Let me know, is that something you experience a lot, some of the time, little? Just give me a 1, 2, 3. 1 for a lot, 2 for some of the time, 3 little. Just so I can get an idea. There's a time when, if you'd asked me that question, I would have put 1. I was in a stressed state a lot of the time. Okay. Problem is that chronic activation of the sympathetic nervous system, fight, flight, freeze. Fight, flight, freeze is more parasympathetic response. It drains energy reserves and it slows down healing. It affects our immune system. It affects energy production and storage. So we've got 2 1s there. Okay, sorry to hear that. But that's good that you know where you are. It affects our sleep, and therefore we're not getting restorative sleep where the body does important repair work. So we've got a couple of 2s as well, 2 1s and 2 2s. Thanks for your interaction, really helps me understand where you are. Okay, but I was definitely a 1 at one point. Okay, affects our sleep. It also affects our digestion, which is it fuels energy production and storage. Our digestive system is sending the building blocks for energy production and storage to our cells. Okay, so being in this state of fear also dampens our rational problem-solving part of the thinking brain. So we tend to be more reactive, more emotional. Napoleon Hill, who was the author of the book Think and Grow Rich, said, and that book was published I think in 1937, the untrained mind naturally drifts to the negative. The good news is that your mind can be gently retrained. Okay, so you're probably aware of neuroplasticity. That's the ability of the brain to grow with use. And scientists used to think that the adult brain didn't change, even though there was research that goes back over 100 years that shows that that wasn't the case. And in early 2000s, Eleanor Maguire, University College London, did a study studying London's black cab drivers. And I've shared this number before, so you might know the answer. They have to memorise a large number of streets. Any guesses how many streets they have to memorise? Give us a guess in the chat. Let me know what your guess is. Don't be shy. It doesn't matter if you get it wrong. This is an opportunity for you to just practice not worrying too much about getting things wrong, if that's something you do. So give me your answer. How many streets do you think black cab drivers have to memorise? I'll give you a moment to do that. It is a big number, okay? But what Eleanor Maguire found is that the adult brain does change. Black cab drivers' hippocampus, which is responsible for memory and spatial awareness, was enlarged compared to the general public. Everyone's being a bit shy. No one's answering that question. So Dorothy says 10,000. Good guess. It is a bit higher than that, but you're in the right ballpark. Any other guesses? Be brave. Claire's right on the nose. 25,000. Did you know that, Claire, or was that just a very good guess? Let me know. But that is the right answer. Okay. So what that tells us is the brain can change. We can wire our brain to be really good at things that are either unhelpful or helpful. So I used to be really good at generating anxiety. And then I learned to be really good at generating more calm, more confidence. The first time I did a live session, okay, honest truth, I was so kind of anxious that I couldn't speak. I literally couldn't speak. And I kind of said, there's a tech issue. But it was, I think, number one, I was anxious because I hadn't done enough preparation. And I hadn't done enough preparation because I thought I didn't need to prepare. I thought I should be able to do it, which is just silly. All right. So that is the right answer, 25,000. Okay. But it does tell us our brain can change. We can learn to be really good at things that are useful. That applies to learning an instrument. I'm learning the piano at the moment, but it also applies to learning things. For example, learning how to reframe the way we look at things so that we're looking at things in more useful ways. I will tell you in a bit how you can access my reframing cheat sheet. So Claire says, I heard it recently but struggled to remember just now, so it was a bit of a stab into the brain fog. So well done for getting that answer right. So let's look at some strategy. So number one, and this is something I've talked about before, but I repeat these ideas because then there's more likelihood they get in. When I work with clients, I talk about the art of learning, A-R-R-T. A stands for allow yourself to be a learner. So that's growth mindset. Whereas a fixed mindset is, if I don't know, I won't be able to learn, and I should know. Okay, so allow yourself to be a learner. The first R stands for repetition. So if we hear something enough, it starts to get in. And I've had people say to me, I've watched your videos, and now some of the concepts that you've been talking about are starting to become ingrained, and that's brilliant. And these sometimes are people I've never even worked with. Okay, so I create lots of free content to help you move towards your goals. So do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Check out the playlists. I've created playlists on many topics: anxiety, dealing with setbacks, dealing with emotions, etc. So do check out the playlists. So first strategy then is accessing the wise, regulated part of you. Okay, there is a part of you that's wise, that is resourceful, that has responded to challenging situations in resourceful ways. Let me know if that's true. Do you agree? Do you recognise that there are situations in your past which were challenging situations, and you just responded in a resourceful way, and it was, at times, it was just automatic? Let me know in the chat. Give me a yes if that is the case. The vast majority of people I speak to recognise that there is a part of them that is wise. And you can activate this part of you. Sometimes it happens automatically, as I've said. Other times it takes effort. However, the more you practice connecting to that part of you, the easier it gets to activate that part. So, do you remind yourself? So Kelly says yes, fantastic. So do you remind yourself on a daily basis that you have this part of you that is wise, that is loving, that comes from a place of trust? Okay, I invite you to do that every day. It's part of my morning routine. I do a little visualization. Acronym is Marvels. Made a video on that, so check that out. It's on my YouTube channel. And part of that is just connecting to that wise part of me. Okay, so we want to build that muscle. The more we practice something, the better we get at it. Okay, so I invite you to visualize that wise part, and that wise part can comfort the part of you that is scared. So this is kind of inner parenting. You don't have to fight the fear. You can allow the part of you, and actually fighting the fear, saying, oh no, I'm feeling fearful, this is bad, I have to get rid of this, actually can escalate the fear. Okay, so you don't have to fight the fear. You can allow the part of you to feel that fear and make it okay. You just don't have to follow it. You don't have to let it dominate. You can guide that part of you that operates from fear. Okay, how? So let's look at some tools to help regulate and reframe. So the first thing is to let that scared part speak. Imagine having a conversation. There's the part of you that's wise, there's the part of you that is generating fear. And actually just that act of recognizing that you've got these two parts actually starts to create some distance. So rather than fully inhabiting that scared part, you're recognizing, okay, this is a part of me, but there is this other part of me that's wise. So consider that if a child was scared, it might be your child or, someone in your family's child or a friend's child. If they were feeling scared and you just said to the child, don't be silly, that wouldn't help that child regulate their nervous system. It would escalate their feelings of anxiety because they would just feel that their needs weren't being met, not necessarily consciously, but that would be their felt experience. Okay, so we can have that sense of, I'm scared of going back there. But the more that the wise part can acknowledge the part of us that is operating from fear, listening to that part allowing that part to feel heard, then that scared part can start to feel regulated. Okay, you've probably had many experiences of that as a child where, let me know in the chat if this is the case, where you were a bit scared or something, but someone kind of was there for you, they listened to you, and then they were able to reassure you, and that helped regulate your nervous system. So consider that when you access your wise self, that wise self can be proactive. It can guide that scared part. So other strategies we can do are simple orienting. So for example, looking, and you can do this now, looking around the room, just noticing things around you, the objects, just recognizing that actually in this moment you are safe. Okay, just saying to yourself, right now in this moment there isn't a threat, I am safe. So another strategy is just to do some somatic anchoring or breath practice. So you can put one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, and just focus on breathing into your belly, and ensure that the out breath is a little bit longer than your in breath. And just say a phrase. It might be, I'm with you. It's okay to recognize that right now I am safe. It's okay in this moment to relax. So consider that safety isn't the absence of fear. It's the presence of that part of you that can reassure you. So in the past, if I had an anxious thought, I'd be overwhelmed with it. Whereas now, if I have an anxious thought, I can just acknowledge it. Oh, look, I'm having an anxious thought. I notice it, I observe it. I sometimes imagine popping it on a cloud and just noticing it. And in its own time, it will just float away. I have created a little video on how to respond to our thinking, especially if our thinking is unhelpful. It's really important that we don't believe everything that we think, because our thinking brain can generate thoughts that are not true, they're not useful. Okay? So remember that. Safety isn't the absence of fear, it's the presence of support. Okay? As I say, check out that video. I'll put the link below this video if you're watching on YouTube, so check out this video on my YouTube channel. And I've got loads of free resources, so do subscribe to my YouTube channel and check out, as I say, the playlist. Check out that video on how to respond to thoughts. And the other thing is, I'm going to be doing a live training where I'm going to talk more about why the mind-body connection is key to healing, and understanding these different intelligences that we have. The emotional intelligence, the thinking intelligence, the two parts of our thinking brain, one which can actually support us, one that can get us into trouble. So if you'd like to join me for that live session, comment live below and I'll share the link. If you're watching on YouTube, I have popped that link right at the top of this video. So the next thing is to acknowledge that who you are now is not who you were back then. So to recognize, if this feels valid to do so, that you have grown since then. You have more tools, more resources. So recognize that you've learned more strategies, you have more knowledge, you've developed your capacity for self-compassion, for setting boundaries, for approaching things in a more sustainable way. So recognize that you are allowed to grow beyond that past self. If you're new to mind-body approaches and you think, well, actually, I don't feel like I've, have moved on from that place, then be clear, you can learn strategies to navigate the fear. I used to be a very anxious person. As a kid, I was anxious. If I was watching telly and noticed that I wasn't feeling anxious about anything, I'd find things to be anxious about. Okay? So recognize what you have learned. Recognize that you can learn and that you can respond differently. So, comment from Barleycorn Clinic. If the brain is perceiving danger with symptoms, should one put those symptoms aside and push through? Thanks, Donna. So, Donna, what I would say is if you're generating symptoms, your emotional brain is generating those symptoms, then actually what I would say is we need to learn to identify this, label the symptom, label any emotions, and I'll talk more about this in the live session, the relationship between emotions, sensations and symptoms. Okay, so I would say we need to identify the symptom, to identify the emotions that might be driving the symptom, and process what's going on, and then that can help de-escalate the symptoms. Okay, you've probably had many experiences of that, and as I say, I'll talk more about that in the live session. So do comment live if you're watching on Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube, do comment, because any comments help other people find the video. But I have linked the place where you can sign up for that training. Okay, and even if you can't make the live session, that the replay will be available for a few days. So recognize if that fear shows up, you don't have to let it take over. Okay, you can learn how to meet that part of you with care, as you would, as I've said, that frightened child. Okay, you are capable of healing in a way that honors your body's timing and wisdom. So I saw that, Kelly. I will share the link. It's okay to move forward. It's okay if you feel some caution. You think, oh, actually, yeah, but will I go back to how I was? But it's also okay to reassure yourself. One of the things that I experienced, and many people I've worked with have experienced, once they start learning these tools, their confidence builds that they're not going to go all the way back. And if they do experience ups and downs, then they feel more confident they've got the tools and skills to navigate that, to support their healing, to help them come out of those strong symptoms more quickly. And certainly that was my experience. Okay, so let me know if you've got any final questions before we finish. As I say, I've linked that, I've shared the link to the mind body training, where you're also going to get free gifts when you sign up. One is the reframing cheat sheet, which helps you look at things in more resourceful ways. And when I shared a post sharing some of those comments, people really gave me lots of lovely feedback. If you do sign up, I'll tell you how you can access my Relax Deeply hypnosis audio, which is normally something people pay for, and the timeout bundle, which is a simple technique, and I've created short videos, 5-minute video, 10-minute, 15-minute, 30-minute videos, so you can listen to the one that you need. And it's a simple way of just helping you quieten your mind if you find that your mind's a bit all over the place. Okay, so simple, gentle practice. So consider you're not alone if you have this thought. Okay, many others have also, but it is possible to navigate it with more self-care, with more compassion, with more curiosity. So thanks everybody for joining me. Keep up the great work, and if you've got any questions, just get in touch. See you in the next video. If you've got any suggestions for any topics you'd like me to cover, let me know. If you found this video helpful, do leave a comment, do leave a like, do share it with one other person who might find it helpful. But thanks for joining me. Kelly says thank you. You are very welcome, Kelly. And I hope that gave you some food for thought, Donna, to your question. But anyway, thanks everybody. Thanks for joining me. Bye for now.